A bit more than 2 years ago, in May 2022, Captain of Industry launched in early access. It was pretty much coming out of nowhere. There was, of course, a few playtests that had been done and things like this, but most people hadn't heard about it. And honestly, it took the world by surprise, but also by storm. 2 years later, according to Steam, I've spent more than 1,000 hours into this game. And frankly, I'm not ready to stop just yet. We've just completed our third full Let's Play on the channel, and I'm definitely still loving this one. Waiting for update 3 to start a new one. If you don't know this game, you basically arrive on a deserted island and you're in charge. You need to guide your people, you need to start producing more and more complex resources, trade, research, and much more. In particular, a really cool thing is how when you terraform the terrain, you're actually terraforming the terrain. So for example, if you dig over here this mountain, it is actually going to destroy the mountain, and you can also dig into the soil and it will make a hole. So it is really, you're literally digging. And you can even terraform in the sense of dumping resources into the ocean, and at some point there will be no ocean anymore. Today this is my ultimate guide for the game, where I want to share 25 critical tips in under 10 minutes. So let's dive right in. Tip number 1, you have your resources over here. You can choose whatever resource you want. You click on the pin over here, it will put the resource there or take it out. For example, I want to add exhaust, now it's there. Similarly, if you do right click on the resource, you can see how to produce those resources or how to use those resources. And lastly, if you do left click, then you're going to see all of the graphs, like how much production or quantity you're doing in the last few months or more. Tip number 2, if you're playing this game for the first time, follow the tutorial. There's a tutorial unlocked by default over here. For example, build, first step is build a coal maker and connect it to a small stack. And if you do need even more, you just click on this. It's going to open tutorial pages describing exactly what to do. You can even skip some of the tutorial if you don't want. And lastly, if you're really lost, just watch my Let's Play series. Tip number 3, death spirals are real in this game. You can go into a death spiral where you cannot get out of it, or it can be very difficult to get out of it. For example, you don't have enough diesel anymore and you can't make diesel because to make diesel, you need, to transport resources, and you can't transport resources because you need diesel to transport resources. So what's the tip here? The tip is you should take your time. Don't rush. Don't build all of those new buildings as soon as you unlock them. And don't hesitate to pause the game like I just did right now when you need to figure out what's going wrong and plan your next step. Tip number 4, press F3 to get into your trading. So in particular, if you're getting into a death spiral, you can sometimes trade to get yourself out of it. Let's say you're missing diesel, you can trade some coal for diesel or some construction part level 2 for diesel. But 2 things to note. 1 is you need Unity to trade. So make sure that you always have some reserves of Unity. And 2 is the more you trade, the more the price is going to increase. For example, now it is 50 wood for 40 bricks. If I trade even more, it's going to be now 78 for the same amount. So you need to then wait for it to cool down and the price will come back down, which I think is a great mechanic, but you need to know about it. And last tip to get you out of a death spiral, tip number 5, you can use a loan. You can select a product over here and get a loan for any of those products. You borrow a certain amount. You can see that I can borrow 4,800, for example, right now. You can choose how long it's going to take you to repay. So of course, the longer you take, the more you can take, and the less you're going to pay per month. But of course, be careful about the interest rate. And another thing to know about loans is that the more loans you do and you repay on time, the more your credit score is going to increase, which will give you access to bigger quantities and better rates and things like this. So it's good to do some loans from time to time. Tip number 6, you should definitely do blueprints. I have many blueprints on my Discord community, more than 50. You can download them for free, and they can definitely help you to build things very quickly, right? Because the whole thing, is prepared and is very efficient. Tip number 7, as I said, make sure that you always have some Unity reserves. So make sure that the consumption of Unity over here is lower in general than your usage of Unity. You can get Unity many different ways, but in particular is with different types of food, by providing electricity and water to your people. That's the easy way to get it. And then usually you're going to consume it with contracts or edicts. Tip number 8, the 2 most important shortcuts you should know. The first one is C. You press C, you're going to be able to copy whatever you want. A building or many buildings at once. And the second one is F, because F is going to mirror whatever you have over here, right? So this is not like air or R is going to rotate, F is going to mirror. Tip number 9, you need to take care of the byproducts or your productions will stop. What do I mean? Over here, this exhaust scrubber is taking exhaust and water to make sulfur, carbon dioxide, and steam. If, for example, my steam is full, it is going to stop. If my sulfur is full, it's going to stop. So you need to make sure you use, or you dump or you burn all 3 of these, or the whole thing is going to stop. Tip number 10, F1 gets you to the recipe list. You can search for any recipe. Let's say I want to see the steam. It's going to show me all types of steam, and when I click on one of those steams again, it's going to show me all of the ways to make that steam and all of the ways to consume this steam. So really powerful here. If you're still here, why not clicking on the like button? It doesn't cost you anything and it helps me a lot. Tip number 11, you should use the alerts functionality. All of your storage buildings will have this alert button. You click on it and you have two choices. You can use both or one at the same time. This is to notify you when there is a problem. For example, when this is empty or when this is getting lower than 75%, or on the other hand, when it is full or more than a certain amount. So this is really powerful to give you advance notice that something is wrong, right? This way you have time to fix it before it is empty, for example. Pressing L, you can see all of your resources on the map, right? You can see I have some iron over here, some copper, some coal, and many others. You can see all of these resources on the side here, and if I click on one of the resources, they're going to disappear. For example, if I click on the limestone, it disappears. What is also very important, tip number 12, is you can actually count how deep the resources is. You can see those bars over here. This is telling you how deep it is. And you can even see, is it on the surface, like this one, right? The color, let's call it beige, is directly on the surface. Versus this limestone over here, it is underground. This gray says there is rocks or terrains above it. There is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers before you get to it. So you're gonna have to dig 8 levels down before you can get to it. Tip number 13, upgrades are not always better. They often are. They often take less people, etc. for better production, but sometimes they're not. For example, for the farms, it's actually not a good idea. If you have the space, keep as many irrigated farms as you can. They take less people and less maintenance for the same production. Tip number 14, you should use priorities. This is the functionality you can see over here. Every single building will have a priority. This enables you to say which building should stop first or should stop last when I don't have enough people or when I don't have enough electricity. So for example, in my case, I make sure that my electric production is always priority 1. That should never stop. Then there is my food production. This is priority 4, for example, or my medicine priority 5. I think my maintenance is priority 2, so you decide what is most important to you. On the other hand, something like research is usually the least important, or maybe your vehicle production, or maybe your rocket assembly, that is low priority. Tip number 15, similarly, use balancers. You should put priorities in your balancer. For example, this balancer over here, there is 2 inputs of sulfur. Then there is 2 outputs, but one output is prioritized, meaning all of the sulfur will go this side first. This is the side where we use the sulfur to make something interesting. But then if this is full, then it will go this side and be burnt. So obviously you don't want it to have 50% go there, 50% go there. You want 100% to be prioritized on this side. And then when this is full, only go here. Tip number 16, try to give as many different food as possible. For 2 reasons. The first one is the more types of food you give, the more unity you get. For example, if I only give potato, I get 0.15 of unity. But if I give potatoes and corn, I will get 0.15 times 2, so 0.30 of unity. I double it. And it's also giving me a health bonus. The more categories over here you give, so if I give potatoes and meat, or potatoes and eggs, I will get a bonus. And if I give potato and meat and vegetables, then I get the maximum bonus. The treats over here, the snacks and cake, they don't give health, they only give huge amount of unity. But there is a second reason why it's also important, is because the more types you give, the more you need to give less of each. Meaning, let's assume they want 100 potatoes, okay? If I start giving them corn, they're gonna want 50 potatoes and 50 corn. It's not like they still want 100 potatoes. So it's a no-brainer. As much as you can, give as many of these types as you can of food. Tip number 17, you need to understand the difference between Z, M, and N. Basically, Z is dumping, M is mining, so it's gonna go down, and N is both Z and M together. So look at this over here. This is level 2, right? Here it's gonna be slightly higher than level 2, it's level 3, and here obviously it's lower than level 2. If I put N over there, it's going to dump on this side because it's lower, and it's going to dig on this side because it's higher. Versus M is only going to dig there and not dump over here. And lastly, Z, it's going to not dig but dump only. So it's really great. Depending on what you want to do, you can use the 3 different ones. Tip number 18, you're gonna need a lot more trucks than excavators. Let's assume you want 5 excavators, you probably want 50 trucks. You can also click on your truck icon over here to see actually, do you have a lot of idle trucks, a lot of idle excavator, and you can even look into the analytics to see how many trucks are delivering what. Right now in this playthrough, everything is automated, so I can't really show you that, but yeah, use more trucks than excavators for sure. And tip number 19 though is, at the end, you don't want even trucks, you want belts everywhere like I've done over here. All of my resources are on belts, on gigantic busts, because this way you don't need to consume any diesel or anything like this, and it's also a lot more consistent. Tip number 10, don't delete building right away. Let's assume, for example, you're moving from fuel generators to steam generators or from steam to nuclear. Keep the old one because you never know, right? You pause them, it's fine, you can pause them, they won't cost you any maintenance and people, but don't delete them right away. You never know if you're gonna need them, if the other ones are not working anymore and you're in a death spiral. 5 more tips and they are big, but also remember you can watch my full Let's Play series if you want to see these tips in action. Tip number 21, the surfaces that you can find over here, they are not just for cosmetic. They actually also reduce the vehicle maintenance, the vehicles that are going on the surfaces by 20%. So it's great for cosmetic like over here in my city, but it's also great to make sort of fake roads. It's not roads in the sense of, they will have to take this road, but it's great road in the sense of it's going to reduce their maintenance. Tip number 22, as soon as you unlock those exhaust scrubber, you should use them. Even if you're going to burn all of the sulfur and send into the atmosphere all of the carbon dioxide that is created, this whole thing is going to create a lot less pollution than sending the exhaust into the atmosphere. So use them as much as possible to reduce your pollution, you'll have less health problem and all those type of things. Tip number 23, on the world map over here, you have many mines and oil rigs. They are all finite, you can see there is a reserve, this one is 46% left, except one. The one that is not finite is the rock mine over here. This rock mine is forever, you can upgrade it as much as you want and you can use it as much as you want, it will never end. It's for the simple reason that you cannot get rocks anywhere else via contracts. Tip number 24, your farms must be on fertile ground. Over here, this is all rocks that doesn't work. Over here, you can see some of the ground is fine, but some of it is not farmable. 2 tips here. One is you don't need 100% of it to be farmable. You just need, I think it's around 80%. Look at this. This is not fine, but this over here, this is fine. There's still some rocks, but it is fine. And tip number 2 is you only need 1 layer to be actually soil for it to be farmable. So what you do is you dig for 1 layer this, then you put only soil on it and you'll be fine. And last tip, tip 25, you need 14 contracts to make a forever city, a city that can run forever without you doing anything. If you want to know more about how to make this happen, watch this episode on the screen right now.